Um, Thanks, everybody, for coming today. Today, we are blessed with the presence of Meryl Pepcorn. Meryl is, I don't have your biography, and I just met you, but I know a few things about you. I know that you've been very active in the Horseman neighborhood. I know that you're currently an elected representative with the state of North Dakota. And is it true you used to be the voice of the Red Hawks?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Newman Outdoor Field for this afternoon's game between the Winnipeg Goldeyes and your Fargo Moorhead Red Hawks.
I'll take that as a yes. So today, Meryl is going to do a little song for us to kick off our meeting.
Yep, very good. Thank you for the invite. And I, as a 1974 graduate of Concordia College with a degree in speech and theater, I just did it because I found out you could actually get a degree in that at the time. And it turns out, well, lo and behold, my whole life, basically, for generating income has been in entertainment, either acting or in music and voice work and radio work with Prairie Public primarily. But it just worked out that way, so I wound up in the right place anyway. And now, we won't talk about the now quite yet, but the song I'm going to do for you, how many people are born and raised in a town other than Fargo? And where are you from, Deborah?
Devil's Lake.
Devil's Lake?
Sacramento.
Sacramento, California. Yep. Wow, import. And who else are you saying? Joe?
Assistant, South Dakota.
Assistant.
Wapaton. Honolulu.
Oh my God.
Honolulu, Sacramento.
Warwick, North Dakota.
Warwick, that's what I was looking for, a Warwick.
No, I'm Fargo.
Fargo. And Tracy is as well. Well, I was born in Stanley, North Dakota, kind of a lot like Warwick. And so without the small towns, Fargo wouldn't be the big town that it is. People come from the small towns to go to school, to work, stay here, start their families. And so I just wrote this song for my hometown of Stanley, but you can relate to it no matter where you're from. And normally we play it with my four-piece Radio Stars band, but I think we can get through it. Stanley, North Dakota, I love you 'cause you're my hometown. It's a World Whip football championship. It's history and what's yet to be. It's a place in my memory, it's a place in my heart. It's still a place where young families can get a great start. It's the Jumas and the Jarmans and the Enanders. It's the Ogdens and the Strawbecks, good neighbors for sure. Kind of people show up with a hammer in their hand when your barn burns down to build it up again. Well, it's Saturday night and everybody's in town. Mama's here to shop, don't you slow her down. Well, the kids are at the show hall, daddy's at the farmer's bar. When the evening's over, we'll meet you at the car. Stanley, North Dakota, I love it 'cause you're my hometown. It's a pretty town surrounded by fields of wheat. People come here to do business, it's a county seat. The siren still goes off at 10 o'clock at night. Your children get on home and go to bed and shut out the light. You can still catch a fish in a city pond, catch fireflies in the tall grass all night long. The 4th of July parade still goes right through town, and we'll picnic in a park till the sun goes down. Well, it's Saturday night and everything is all right. The Tioga boys are here, there might be a fight. The girls are in the back seat playing with their dolls. Daddy shooting snooker down at the pool hall. Stanley, North Dakota, I love you 'cause you're my hometown. Now this is where the fiddle solo and the steel guitar solo would be. We'll shorten up the solo part. important. Be listening up here now. Well, oil's creeping in round the edge of town. Everybody's got the fever jumping up and down. And if you want to start an old-fashioned family fight, just ask who does own all of the mineral rights. Well, new money flows in every now and then, but it's a hard-working people and a lifelong friend. Sticking together through thick and thin that makes a town like Stanley worth living in. Well, it's Saturday night and everybody's in town. The silver sailors rockin', we'll bring the roof down. We're dancing to the music of the radio stars, and when the evening's over, we'll meet you at the bar. Stanley, North Dakota, I love you 'cause you're my hometown. Stanley, North Dakota, I love you 'cause you're my hometown. There you go.
Thank you, Merle.
I want to tell you just a little bit, Brian, just a few moments to
Sure.
tell you a little bit more. I see Tracy just had a letter she's sending off to Kim Conoco, who's head of the North Dakota Council on the Arts, John. You've met Kim. And during the first legislative session, I did it in 2 sessions, just finishing my first term, meaning I'll be up for election in 2020. But I went in and visited with Kim about establishing a position. We have a poet laureate, and establishing a position, I researched just a little bit, we could have an artist laureate position in North Dakota, and I suggested that. Well, it had to come with a $5,000 honorarium, which would require a few appearances, about a 2-year term yet. And she was afraid, as the newcomer, to go to the legislature and request an increase of $5,000 to the legislature.
Great.
But that just kind of tells you, where the arts are,
Yeah.
to a certain extent in North Dakota, but there are opportunities there. Hey, by the way, I was able to perform for the original installation of Sodbuster.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Louis Jimenez.
Yeah.
And they had a big deal over at the Art Museum in Moorhead, and so we had a good time with that. So I was kind of thrilled to see it back in action again.
Yeah,
Hey, by the
for
way,
sure.
back to the song. It starts out, it's a whirlwind of football. You might know, you're ineligible. Anybody else know what a whirlwind is?
Isn't it like ice cream at the Stanley?
It
Oh.
is a
Drugstore
it's
or whatever
hard,
it is.
regular ice cream sent through this process. For Stanley, North Dakota,
So
Dakota is the
good.
only place in America you can get a whirlwind. So next time you're out on Highway 2, you get
It's so
fries.
good.
That contains
Not even ultra ice cream.
And this is kind of what I wear during a gig. I did the whole show here. Normally I have some boots on as well. But this is, I've been able to do some other things. I'm kind of a promoter of North Dakota to ourselves and to others. This is a film called Elbowwoods, Basketball, Water, and the Lost City of Elbowwoods. It's a film that's based on the 1942 Elbowwoods, North Dakota basketball team. It goes on to tell a greater story about the flooding of great documentary, and I was able to moderate the discussion Tuesday here at City Hall about this kind of a lunch and learn American Commission. So I've been able to use documentary film I made in Prairie Public. And yes, Deb, you're correct. I was elected to the state Senate.
State
in
Senate.
2016. We'll be back running in 2020. But I've always been interested in politics, and not everybody can serve. They have to be in a unique position. Because young people are busy raising their families and working when they start to take time. But I came across this poem by Henry Martinson. Now, he was an early rabble-rouser. He was instrumental in the early days of the nonpartisan league. I'm a member of the Democratic Nonpartisan League Party. I'm not going to tell you all about it, but the nonpartisan league part of it isn't as well known as, the Democratic name. But it's an interesting story there as well. But he wrote this one called The Politician. Now, he was a very active politically, and he also, Henry Martinson, was a poet laureate. And he writes, Jim Olson ran for office, and voters he must charm. So he called on all those voters in the city and on the farm. Then one early morning he drove in Farmer's yard to talk a little politics and give them all a card. In the yard, his daughter Mary, milking the red cow. Jim said, "You vote for me?" And made a smiling bow. But Ma, she heard Jim talking and said, "Daughter, come in now, and if it's politician Olson, best you also bring the cow." There you are. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks, Merle. Thanks so much.
And thanks for the work you do too, as we
Thank you.
promote the arts
Yeah.
in Fargo as well. We'll see what we can do for you in the legislature too. Don't be afraid to call with ideas. And
Thank you.
We won't be, I promise.
we need help. We
Yeah.
need help too. We need direction.
Right, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna start up here. So based on the agenda, can I get a motion to approve the order of agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Can I get all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. So next is to approve the minutes from August. We didn't have a quorum in September, so we don't have minutes. So can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, and then we had Merrill. Now, Tracy and I were lucky enough to go to Cincinnati last weekend. We went to a creative placemaking summit. While we were in it was a 2-day meeting, and it was I followed a track that was all about A to B creative placemaking, which is something that I really felt like I needed to get my arms around a little bit. Tracy has more experience with creative placemaking than I do, so she took a few different, we went to different meetings. They were really good meetings. They were very informative. I thought the meetings were very good. The other really super cool thing that was going on is Blink. Blink is Cincinnati's Light Festival. Okay, so the thing about Cincinnati is that we were downtown in the big, tall building skyscraper place, part of downtown. There's also another part of downtown that's much older and is re-emerging, let's say. But it's tippy, The downtown area seemed to be a little less.
It was a modern downtown, but there were very significant areas still of blight and of a lot of opportunities.
Yes, lots of opportunities. There was no retail. I noticed that in this part of downtown, there was not one single art gallery. I don't know that we saw a theater. It's a little, and there's no retail, no big retail in downtown. Okay, so it seems like, oh my God, this poor town, right? Here's the deal. Blink is a light festival. It goes 4 nights. It's all at night. It's all light installations. It's sculptures. It's projection art. Different kinds of things. Music is involved. Last year was the first year, and they were hoping for 500,000 people, and they got 1 million. I watched a little bit of Cincinnati TV. So this is its 2nd year. I watched a little bit of Cincinnati TV. Everybody on the local channels is talking about it. When we walked around in this re-emerging area, this old downtown area, every single person, I swear, that we talked to and interacted with was asked us if we were in town for Blink. So everybody in town knows about it. And did they ever show up for Blink while we were there? I mean, it was crazy amount of people. So the moral of that story is that, so they're not doing so great financially maybe, but the people really came out and were really 100% behind this art festival. So it was really cool. And the installations were amazing. I mean, they had like 100 or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and many of the installations were just pop-up, but there were some that were going to be turned into permanent installations. And they were, it was such an amazing display of all of the varieties of types of art that can be done with light. And it was absolutely inspiring, and I think both Deb and I were just half the time walking around in complete awe.
Yeah.
And keeping in mind that the reality is we were in an environment that, you know, they could use a developer coming into town and giving them some help. So it was not as though, you know, this was a high-end community and kind of had all their ducks in a row. It was a community that said, hey, let's start with art, and then let's fill in around that.
They are also blessed with a local arts organization called Art Wave that handled this, for the most part, handled this festival. And well, I'll tell you what, I mean, they just knocked it out of the park. I mean, it was amazing. They have I think 3 suspension bridges going from Cincinnati to Kentucky. And one of them is called the Singing Bridge. And it was lit up and was closed, and it was part of the festival. They made it sing, you know, and they had it all lit up, and it was very cool. They also had one of the sculptures that debuted at Burning Man and is looking for a permanent home. So it was very cool, and it kind of, you know, the creative placemaking part of it was incredibly useful, and is something that I'll be able to use moving forward, because I feel like it's where I think that as a commission, I kind of think it's more where we want to go, more in making neighborhoods and making creative places, and more of the overarching work that we could be doing here. And so that in and of itself was extremely helpful. But I think we all know what creative placemaking is. It's just a matter of really kind of digging into it. Tracy?
I was just going to highlight, I am pretty familiar with creative placemaking, but there was one session that was really, it spoke to me, and it was called New Urbanism and Creative Placemaking. And it wasn't at all what I thought it was going to be, which has actually turned out wonderful. But before I talk about the session, you know, one of the things that I loved a couple years ago was the installation of the pianos. I'm a pianist. I grew up playing. I mean, that was the coolest thing ever. And I think everybody kind of felt like, oh, it was such a cool concept. But, you know, the practicality of and the execution ended up being kind of unfortunate at the tail end. This breakout session that I went to talked about in Midwest, Central, the United States, of how there's all these communities that are being plagued with graffiti and tagging people and things like that. And there's a few different communities that said, yeah, they're really cool, good artists. They're just using it in ways that we're not valuing as a society. We think that's a negative. Let's pair them with a local artist. And so as a graffiti pops up, if they can find out who did it, they would be paired with an artist, and they would be, as part of their community service, required to actually produce an art project from that graffiti. So it's taking that negative and just totally giving these kids, whomever it would be, an opportunity to see that, yeah, you are incredibly talented. Let's just show you how you can use that for a positive application. And I thought, how powerful. So I thought of the pianos, because to me it's like, oh, that was an amazing opportunity. So let's find the positive in it. Let's find a way to twist it. And maybe it's not the piano project, it's something else, but let's not focus on the wah-wah. If something doesn't quite turn out the way we think. Let's find those opportunities. So anyway.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair. I think of the mural now on the police building, right, on 25th and 13th. I go by it every day, and it's a wonderful addition to that corner, right? So.
It is. So one of the, I'm going to move into the capital project update. And if anybody's got questions or wants to talk a little bit about creative placemaking, I'm by no means an expert at this point, but I'm happy to talk to anybody, talk it through more thoroughly as well as I can. There's a number of things that I took away, and I think probably one of the biggest takeaways I had, besides being blown away by that festival, was to it's important to involve the community, but be prepared for the community to have not put any thought at all into, I mean, when you ask them, what kind of art do you want? They're like, art? I just want to get food on the table for my kids, you know? So it's work. I mean, to really be cognizant of what we're doing to people's neighborhoods as we're going in and that type of thing, and making sure that we are doing something that's sensitive to the neighborhood. And it's just not a matter of rolling in with a trailer and a sculpture on the back of it and plunking it down on a corner somewhere. So I think that's probably the thing that we can kind of maybe get carried away with, that kind of stuff. So I thought that was really, it's a good way to pull back. And that came from people who thought they were involving the community, and yeah, they got spanked pretty bad. So we don't want that to happen. Okay, so next is a capital project update. We met Monday. We met on Monday. We pulled together a new group of people. Included in that group of people were Sandy and Andy from the Plains, Charlie Johnson and Andy Thorson from the CVB. CVB, if you remember, had come to us and they thought that they would have $30,000 that they wanted to put into some kind of an art project. That's actually been scaled back a little bit to 20, but they are still very interested, and there is a potential for, they would actually, I think, like to have something annual. Is that the sense you got, Nicole? That they're kind of looking for something annual?
I think to be determined.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, I'm making assumptions, so. Let's see, so they were there, Tracy and I were there. We had a fella from Jade Presents was there. We had a gal from the parks. It was a full room. Well, who else? Yeah, Nicole. Nicole and Megan were both there. We can't, yeah, they have to be there because there's just so many things that, yeah, they know that nobody else knows. So we have to have them there. Okay, so anyway, the goal of this meeting was to determine, or to start working on the RFQ or RFP. We want to get that out by the end of the year. And so we needed to decide, are we going to select a site? Are we going to determine, what kind of project we're going to have? Is it going to be citywide? So here's what we came up with. What we came up with is that we would like to do a light project with a light artist. So there are a couple of sites. We're going to narrow down the sites and have decided that we probably will have the artist make the final determination on site. A couple of the ideas that have come across for site, and please, if you think of anything that we should be thinking about, let me know. But the roundabout, the new roundabout on 2nd and Main, the underpass on 2nd, is that right? The airport, the pedestrian bridge on I-94. These are all just ideas, and I think there were a few others thrown out that maybe I'm not remembering.
Some discussion on university.
Yes, on South University, yeah. So we're going to narrow it down. And then the other thing that was brought to our attention kind of goes to creative placemaking, is that if we are actually going to be asking this artist to be a co-creator with other members of the community, such as the Native community, maybe some of the immigrant community, and work with them and co-create this project. It's kind of where we're looking. We are going to be reconvening in the middle of November, and we are hoping to have this RFQ out the door by the end of the year. So, anybody have any thoughts or ideas, or whoa, no way, do you think about this first?
So this is a permanent installation?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, well, maybe. Oh, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is that the thing that made Charlie Johnson kind of light up is the thought that having a light installation, can be spread across the city, can be replicated. So if we did underpasses, then perhaps all new underpasses would, all the underpasses eventually would get this. It would be a citywide thing that could be worked into our infrastructure, and then could also be rolled into some kind of a festival. So we could, end up with our own little mini Blink, maybe, let's say, or something like that. Then that way, so then we would be bringing in, performance, music, light, all of it.
Island Park was also mentioned, I forgot that one.
Yeah, the parks are a little less enthused about it simply because they close at dusk. So they're a little less enthused, but I think it depends on which way it goes. They wouldn't probably be interested in maybe like a permanent installation. But, but a festival, that's another deal,
Deb?
Yes.
You said you might want to turn this into a festival or something, as you get this art installation. I have a connection with a guy in Florida, and I don't know if I've shared that with you.
You have, yes.
But
Yep.
he, if we've got it in our funds, he has several boxes that have light, interactive things in them, which I think would be really cool, much like the Red Ball.
Yeah.
It brought a lot of people out on Facebook, so I mean, that's an option, I think, if we
Yep.
wanted to tie that into that.
We have to, before we can do any, we're kind of a long ways out because we won't actually be planning it. That'll be, that would be something that, so it's good to keep that in your back pocket though, so that it can be presented if it happens, so that, whoever does, however that ever is going to happen. I've been kind of thinking about it, and all I can think about is, man, that's a lot of money. I wonder where that's going to come from. So far, that's where I'm at. So, we'll have to, yeah, because I'm not doing it. I don't know. Okay. Any other questions in terms of Blink or the capital project? Any other recommendations, perhaps, for sites? Any cautions, suggestions? And if you're, I'm putting you on the spot. So just email me or call or something, if you want to talk it through. We can just, like I said, we don't have a firm date yet, but it'll be the middle of November.
I'll just share, I love the idea that the final selection will be from the artist and the co-creators, but I like the idea of something highly visible to kick this off and start, so that there, it would be a great ROI for wherever we begin, like the walking bridge across I-94.
Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, right.
Oh,
So
we
that
could.
was my reaction to that.
Yeah. And we, of course, are going to have many hoops to go through. I mean, the RFQ alone, just the RFQ is going to have to be approved by the city commission, So, it's a lengthy process, and it takes a lot of work on behalf of staff over here. So they're going to be doing a lot of work for this. So, and as you remember, it's $85,000 that was earmarked because of the public art master plan, all the ideas that were in there. That's why the city commission, they gave us that $85,000 to develop something. So,
Is there a deadline that this has to be completed by in order to spend the money, or?
no.
Okay.
Nope. I'm looking forward to some emails, people. Okay. All right. So next on the agenda is introduction to the ACC's 2020 work plan, which is Nicole? Or is that me? It's me? Okay. So we need to have a new work plan. Our 2019 work plan is running out. What I would like to do is I would like to do a half-a-day retreat during the week, and I would like to get that done before this year is out. I have also asked if we could have a moderator that could walk us through this. The suggestion I had was Rachel Osselson, who helped us with this, pretty much the same process in 2018. Actually, it was a more detailed process. And we were in, we just spent the afternoon. And I don't have any, is Rachel in? Rachel's in. But we don't have any dates to talk about until we talk to her about it, right? Okay, so I just wanted to put you all on notice that we are going to be looking at this. The work plan for next year, I think might be a little bit different. The city would like us to lean a little more towards governance than maybe nuts and bolts. So we're probably going to change things up just a little bit. I've got a few things in mind that I'm not sure I can jam into the public art master plan, but I'm going to try. I just kind of, is there anybody that's like totally out on this? The first time we did this, we didn't have 100% participation, but I would like as many of us as possible to be there. Is there a time that's totally out? Like Thanksgiving Day, nobody's around, is that right? Okay. Come to my house for.
Hey, I could.
Right.
I'll cook.
And Deb, we can send out a doodle poll and things like that as we start getting some dates
Yeah.
figured out by Rachel.
Yep.
And then also for the commissioners not to panic. We don't have to like redo the whole work plan or anything like that. You guys spent a lot of work this last year on a work plan, and you have your committees kind of settled and your kind of tasks kind of on focus. So we don't have to redo any of that. It's more about thinking ahead, and as we kind of get your findings and just kind of polishing some things up is probably the primary thing.
Yeah, and also what worked and what didn't work in the last year. You know, what worked, what didn't work, you know, what's got legs, what doesn't have legs, you know, that kind of stuff. Where is our effort best spent? Okay, all right. So then we go on to the work plan. Rather than just go down the line, does anybody have a report today on work plan for 2019? Subcommittee reports? John?
I met with Jade from Jade Presents about the festival for next year. And I told him about Porch Fest, and he was very intrigued by that. He had a similar idea that he's been mulling about for several years. We're going to meet again in the spring. Studio Crawl won't happen until next October, but he's looking at bringing in some of the bigger name local artists to do a concert at Blue Stem.
How big a name, John?
Like Johnny Lang or Shannon Kerfman.
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah, that would be awesome. So that would be local music in addition to local art with the art crawl. I mean, we could,
So Porch Fest would go on. Jade and I talked a little bit about the logistics of that. Is it all at one time? Is there different places at different times? So you'd go around like a progressive supper.
Right. Yeah.
So there's a lot of the logistics to that to be worked out. But it was nice that you brought up Rachel because she was going to be the lead on that project.
yeah, it was her idea, her original idea. So when we got the, what did we call that? The ideas for the public art master plan?
Possibilities.
Possibilities, public art possibilities. Rachel submitted that, and we were really hoping to go forward with it, but she doesn't really have the time. But you probably want to kind of maybe pull her in and let her know that you're talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would hope that Jade and his staff would take care of most of the logistics and the booking, and
Yes.
we would be more of the marketing and the governance.
We'd be the governance, yes, for sure. Yeah.
John?
Actually, I don't know if we would be the governance. We would be a little bit of the funder, maybe, if they apply.
John, is National Porch Fest Day, does that coincide with the crawl?
I did not know there was a National Porch Fest Day.
Okay, I was going to tell you this because on Facebook this year, I saw many area musicians, and some of them, you know, real good musicians, out on their porch making music. And there is an actual Porch Fest Music Day. And it's, if you Googled it, you'd find out next year's date. So I think if we just had the art crawl recently, I think they're probably 1 or 2 months apart. But have 2 separate activities, it doesn't have to all coincide together. But I saw some action in town on Porch Fest Day that I've never seen before.
Wow.
Because I'm tied into musicians, I guess so. Yeah, so there is an actual one.
Okay, I wish I would have known. Shoot. Okay. Anybody else have a report?
Madam Chair, I do, I met with Joe Raso of the Economic Development Group, President and CEO. He's relatively new to the role. And I think it's a follow-up with you and me to sit down with him so he learns more about the work we're doing and then opportunities in support of future event and any installation and the importance to the messaging. They're building their new brand messaging and unique value prop work. We very much need to be part of that.
Okay, perfect, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to sit down, sure, absolutely, 100%.
Great.
Okay? Anybody else?
Is this where I do the evaluation things, or is that come
Yep.
later?
No,
Okay.
that's no.
Should I do it now?
Yep.
Okay, the last two handouts you have are, Arlette and I got together and worked on, we wanted some evaluations of our events and art installation. So I don't know if anybody's had time to look at these prior to the meeting. And I guess, you know, if you haven't seen them before, maybe you could send me any kind of input you have on them. The first one for events, we could make this a Google form, so we can, if that's okay, Nicole, I'm not sure. But then we would have, the back end of a Google form is coming out as a spreadsheet, so then we would have all of our information from event to event to event, so we can track that kind of information. We just decided to have 3 scores, a high score, medium score, low score. Maybe you have a different idea. I come from the education world, so we normally have 4 sections for that. But we want to start keeping track of how people are feeling about the events that we have and what kind of an impact we're having. And then the other one is the visual arts installation evaluation. And there's one criterion on here, fabrication. We weren't sure. We took this from probably the evaluation you use when you select. Is that correct? Does this look familiar to anybody that's used that? Okay, well, we took it from somewhere and I can't remember where. But fabrication was on there, and I'm not sure you even want that as a part of an art installation evaluation, but so it can come off. I mean, it's flexible. So if you see that something, other criteria would work better in here, just email me. I'm sure when we get our emails about meetings, my email address is in there, so.
Great. This looks wonderful.
I have a question, who would be filling these in?
Well, I think when we have an evaluation, that would have to be filled in by, I think, probably the person in charge of the activity, maybe. They would have more of a pulse on what's going on. Maybe it might be us sometimes. And then the other one is, I'm not sure, I'm not clear, because when Arlette and I were going through this, I'm not sure if the visual art installation would be used to evaluate as things came in, you know, if we wanted to use this as a tool to evaluate the submissions to an art project, or if it's afterwards. I'm pretty sure it's for evaluating when the submissions come in.
So it's not for a public thing, it's not gonna go out on a website or?
No, this is just for us, just for us. And the evaluation for the art installation, we could decide to give feedback to the artist that submits something if we wanted to you know, help them grow as an artist. You know, so I think it's kind of up to more discussion.
I'm wondering if fabrication really should be something more along the lines of like knowledge of execution, or, you know, we've talked about that's been a concern with some of the applications before. Is it's one thing to have a beautiful art piece, you know, submitted, but if they don't know how to truly execute the installation, that's a whole other issue.
And maintaining over time.
Yes, and I think there is a maintenance section.
Okay, yeah.
I wrote weatherability under fabrication. Is it the right material for
Do you want to leave that in
our
there?
environment? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
So maybe we add knowledge of execution then.
Execution and appropriate for the environment.
Okay, if we can put a little,
Yeah, I think there's some subheads, but I'd leave fabrication as the main.
that's what we wondered, if it was like, would it hold up in 30 below weather? Yeah, okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Anybody else? No? Okay.
Thanks, Commission. I have a couple of updates for you. One, recently on Friday, the 11th, we had the open house, public art open house from 8 to 10 up in the Metal Art Room. Even with the weather, we had 7 people attend, and all were there kind of right when we started at 8, so we had a pretty good turnout. We had staff from multiple departments, as well as Jessica Carinta with the Park District, and Brad Bachmeyer was also there, so it was a good kind of Q&A session. So I feel like that was pretty successful. Another update for you, recently we did an email blast for this, but the Forecast Public Art Workshop is coming up on November 2nd. Applications for that are due on Saturday, October 19th. So that is mostly to just gauge how many people are gonna are able to be at the event, and that's gonna be at the Yumcomp Center on November 2nd. So more to come on that. Last update.
Question on that. Is that something that you want a commissioner to be at as well?
My understanding is it's Forecast Public Art is going to be facilitating, and so I don't think any commission needs to be in attendance. It will be
an FYI.
It will be staffed, but yeah, more of an FYI. Yep. And that was something that your yes, and your commission approved a $750 kind of joint match with Moorhead to put the event on earlier this spring. So. Yeah, and I would certainly encourage any commissioner who wants to go to feel free to go and learn more on Forecast method. They, I don't know if it's going to be the exact same workshop they did when building for the public art possibilities, but even as a staff person, I found it informative how they help kind of mentor and coach artists in general about public art. Last update, you might have seen the Civic Plaza first stage is kind of wrapping up. They have the weather was a little bit challenging for them, but they're finishing up, and there is an unveiling or kind of event planned for this Friday at 5 o'clock. Don't believe there's been kind of a public announcement for it yet, but that's what we anticipate that coming out soon. Wanted to get that on your radar, and once I have that information, we'll make sure to pass it along. So.
Great.
So rumor has it there's a party from 5 to 8 p.m. Weather conditions, depending if, I think the majority of the party will be at the library and the city hall parking lot, but whether in a bad weather situation, it might be moved over to the Plains Art Museum, but there'll be treats and a band and all sorts of, and the widow, Louis Jimenez's wife will be here as well, and so kind of just a little public celebration.
Post-traumatic funk syndrome is going to be playing for the party that I am going to miss, sadly. Yeah. Okay.
I had a few other things.
Okay.
I need a PowerPoint.
Oh.
So when a couple other items real quick. This at the end of this month, there's the Main Street Summit that is going to be in Bismarck. And looking at that agenda, it does have a strong arts component. And we're really excited about the executive director of ND Arts Council. She's been working with Forecast Public Art and leadership at the state to unveil a statewide arts program. And I will be actually participating in a couple creative placemaking summits that they're going to be having there at the state, and they're going to have some workshops by region. And so if anybody's free, it is 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the last week of the month, and in Bismarck. And then second, I just wanted to give everybody a little, it's kind of always interesting how arts interacts in all different ways. And the Western Governors Conference was in Fargo earlier this month. And with that came the National Endowment for the Arts leadership. So their deputy director and chair came, and we were lucky enough to meet with her and the mayor earlier this month, along with the Minnesota's Regional Arts Council, person. And so, in some of that dialogue was interesting about potential grant opportunities at the NEA level, as well as her general support of civic engagement in public art. Their big initiatives are the One Read program coming out. And the Poetry Out Loud at the school level. And so they're really focusing on the education age and and then lastly, they still sponsor the Mayor's Institute of Design, and it's a program where they send mayors out there. So Mayor Mahoney got pretty excited about that, and so we'll see if we can make that happen for him at some point. So just want to give you a little brief, kind of as a last minute impromptu surprise leadership from the NEAs in town. But I just wanted to give you that courtesy of announcement. And then lastly, from our executive meeting, and I'm just going to pull up a really, I'm not going to PowerPoint you to death, but just wanted to give you a quick highlight on, as Deb mentioned, let me just pull this up real quick. Here we go. Lots of folders. So maybe just to kick off your work plan discussion, I wanted to give just a really broad overview of some context of the planning department as a whole. One of the challenges I have in our department is I've only been in my position for 2 years, and we have a complete reorganization of the planning department, which means primarily a lot of rebuilding or kind of a refresh of a lot of our programs. And so I wanted to just give a little broad basis on how the arts and culture sits within the City of Fargo Planning Department structure and some of the challenges we'll be working on as we go into 2020. So really, you can think of this as a 5-year transition plan and finishing up year 2. And so I gave the same presentation in the City Commission in July this last year, looking for some direction. And I will spare you the long presentation I had, but just real summary. And so first step is, kind of what are we doing and why, how that transition is happening. And you can think about it again as a 5-year plan. And year 1 was kind of, okay, what are we doing? What are our programs? Investigation. Year 2, which we're in right now, is an assessment. Year 3 will be coming out with some recommendations on how to evolve and affect more efficient governance. And we're constantly being asked to do more with less, and so trying to show why we're efficient. So it's about telling our story, because there's a ton of success coming out of the Arts and Culture Commission, so it's about telling that story. A little bit who we are in the planning department is we kind of the average tenure on staff is between 12 and 6 years, and the average age is between 45 and 33. So we're a young staff comparatively to the City of Fargo. 9 out of 15 of us are from the region, and 9 out of 15 of us moved back. So grew up here, went away somewhere, and then came back. So we're kind of excited about that aspect. A little bit, I know you can't read the chart, but how we're situated. Megan is in charge of the urban development division. We have our community development division, long range planning division, and current planning division. And these 3 divisions share staff. You have Maggie Squire here, newly onto our team here. And so you have Kylie, who you know, Maggie, and Luke, who's an intern, but we also have Catlin and Karin, who are recent hires and kind of support community development and long range and urban development planning. So we all kind of do a little bit of everything, which means we cross-train staff, we communicate our expectations with each other as well as with our boards and commissions. We're trying to advance our use of technology and data management, especially when it comes into project management, like tools like Asana and modern tools. And then our partnerships. We can't do anything without our partnerships. And so as staff, we constantly say, so you'll hear me say this a lot next year, is we don't really do things. We empower people to do things. And so with a staff of 17 people, we can't be everywhere. And so it's about how do we build our partnerships and empower the work. We are stuck inside City Hall, and so how do we get the work out in the community? We've had 17 staff transitions in 24 months. So if you wonder, like, I'm not sure who I talk to, who are all these people, that's probably why. And so I just wanted to kind of say that. And so the first step in the transition is what are we doing and why? Who is our audience and what is our goal? And how do we adapt to change and incorporate, most importantly, transparency, flexibility, and adaptation? And so you'll hear me ask these questions a lot next year as we develop our work plan. Just a little bit again about our 4 divisions. You got Megan and Urban Development, and that's where we've kind of nestled arts and culture. We have Tia in community development, Donald, who you might remember having come to past meetings, and in current planning, and then Aaron in long range planning. So this is new. We didn't used to have urban development focus or a long range planning focus. We used to just have current planning and community development. So adding these 2 divisions, we're really excited about this as it gives us the tools to advance in a further depth in our community. So I'm not going to go into what everybody does, but I will focus a little bit on urban development and our priority, and this is where it's really kind of hard to navigate sometimes, is we're still designed to be operation focused, projects second. And so site plan permitting, we still are believing economic development and business friendly community. And so site plan permitting is our first and number 1 goal on a daily basis. And then our purpose on why we exist, we're trying to align the built environment with quality of life. Our main topics, the Renaissance Zone, downtown in focus, arts and culture, site plans, historic preservations, anything that's really working in that public realm and in that physical space is where Megan's team is kind of touching. If we go back to community development in terms of HUD and housing, all things housing are coming to our department related to that. And then long-range planning, this is where you're going to see a lot more work, and as we connect with you too on our land development code and our core neighborhood plan. So we're going to have projects this year. The goal is to have a summary of projects where maybe 2 or 3 of those projects will be closely aligned and directed by the Arts and Culture Commission, but you're going to see it bridge into other divisions besides just urban development. And so our core neighborhood plan is one of those. It's a fantastic opportunity to integrate creative placemaking at a local, on the ground, geographic level across the city. And so that's the work that we're trying to do, is integrate that. The current planning, another place we're going to connect with the Arts and Culture Commission is with Census 2020. Here's an awesome opportunity. We got this idea from the city of Minneapolis where they reached out to their arts community on helping to bridge that marketing and promotional of Census 2020. So our office is in charge of getting 100% count from the entire population of Fargo. And so so that requires, we do a lot, the feds do a lot of heavy lifting, but in the state and then locally. But a really creative way to do that is through arts, right? Whether it's, John Strand had the idea of wrapping a city bus, we can do poetry about census, we can do, and the reason, everybody probably knows this, but the reason census is so important because that's how we get our federal funds, whether it's arts-related federal funds at the state level, or housing funds, or transportation funds, all federal funds are tied to census. And then in terms of census, we use that for all demographics. All demographics are based on census counts, whether it's private or public, it's all based on census. So, I'll stop on my preach on census. One of the things you'll hear me talk a lot about is whether it's project, and Deb's had to listen to me for quite a while on this, project-based or operational base, or program-based or project-based. And so the reason I ask that is, how do we spend our time as staff? If we're kind of chunking some of our time towards permits, 30%, 21% on projects, 22% on programs, 18% on housing, and then just customer service, daily walk-in traffic. A lot of times if you call information and ask for the city of Fargo and you have a question, you get the planning department. And so, so we help, direct the people to the right place. So an example of a project that sometimes we don't know is coming would be like Sodbuster. So I basically worked with our administration staff and with our team to try to clear as much of Megan's desk to work full-time as much as you can these last 3 months on Sodbuster. And so that project's coming out of our office as a day-to-day management. And that's because she's a landscape architect in training. I'm a landscape architect and planner. And so and the city doesn't really, this is the first soft thing the city's probably really ever built. And so, so any of those cases, and so all of a sudden Maggie became an expert in site plan permitting as we kind of got ramped up, and that's why the cross training is so important. And then lastly, I just wanted to, we're in charge of 13 boards and commissions, the ones with stars. These are all the boards and commissions that are in the city of Fargo. The ones with stars are the ones that come out of our department. And so what that basically means is we work with roughly 83 volunteers a month. And so when we're chasing down quorums or trying to last minute prints, things like that, we really want to try to service you as much as possible, but we just don't have the staff to do that. And so that's where I'm going to start talking about governance and best practices. And so some of this as we move forward, as we try to get, the Arts and Culture Commission is in a great position. You know, we're not very old as a commission, and some of our older commissions have no ordinance, no bylaws, no demands, no mission. You know, you guys are sitting great, you know. So as we try to rebuild some of our other boards and commissions and try to use, we're actually using arts and culture as a model that kind of starts to talk about. But, you know, a lot of times we still have boards that are saying, you know, can we just move the day and meet on Wednesday instead? I'm like, no, our calendar is set, you know, for the year. And so, so one of the ways, I'll end with this slide, is that we're trying to get to one work plan instead of 13 work plans. And so as we look at what we're trying to do is, you can think of it as a capital improvement project or capital improvement plan for the planning department. We've never had that before. And so when we look at the Arts and Culture Commission, what are going to be our priorities as we move forward for this next year from the staff perspective? It's not necessarily from the commission perspective, but from the staff perspective. And this is where we're going to want your weigh in, and this is where we're going to want your guidance and help, because you know, do we have the wrong project identified? And so we're looking at the public art project. You know, if we get the RFQ out by the end of the year, hopefully run a selection process, hopefully get a contract in place, you know, get that project identified. There's going to be management as part of that. And so as we kind of dig in deeper, what are some of those other projects that can come out of the Arts and Culture Commission and the work from the staff level, and that's already on our list. So phase one is just, the Sodbuster is just phase one of the plaza. There's going to be 3 other phases, hopefully. We'll find those next steps as we get into 2020. We have a Kresge Foundation, it's implementation, which is the Fargo Project 2, which I think I've introduced to you, but that probably requires some revisiting on what that is. And then public art implementation through the regranting program. We think we've got good legs on that program thanks to some of the redos this year. And so we continue to make improvements as we learn on that process. And then I'd like to get the operations defined better. You know, I kind of call it program setup. So that is the management and maintenance of our pieces, the appraisals, the insurance, all of those kind of technical details that, and so at some point we'll want to talk about how much information you want to know about that stuff and how much you're like, yep, you got it, great. And so I use Ben Dow in Public Works as an example. Like, you know, his commission basically tells the city commission says, yep, we have an expectation of clean streets, and he's not going back to them getting permission. You know, do we do it 3 times a day, or do we do it 1 time a day? You know, there's just this expectation of best practice and clean streets. I think the arts management will eventually get to that level, and you know, like the pieces at the library, things like that. But I want to make sure we're not getting our staff too far ahead of you all and what you expect to see. So we're still a very young commission, even though I'm sure you're feeling like you're hearing the same thing over and over again, but we don't want to burn you out either. And so I'll just leave it at that. But that's, I started talking about some of these things with Tracy and Deb at our exec meeting, and they're like, oh, you know, we weren't we didn't know you were working on those things. And so we wanted to just kind of give you a broad summary how we sit in the planning commission or in the planning department. And so you have that basis of understanding how you sit as a volunteer, and very much appreciate all the work you all do as part of the city. So with that, I'll stop.
Thank you. Does anybody have questions?
I just want to thank Nicole and all of her staff. I mean, the amount of work that you guys do for us is absolutely phenomenal. So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, we might get the credit, but I think, well, we wouldn't be anywhere without you guys, so, I mean, literally, nowhere.
Yeah, and I'd like to ditto that too, and then I have one request. You mentioned several meetings, Nicole, that are coming up, or some, events or celebrations. Can that be a section at the end of our agenda with upcoming events, so we just have it in writing, date, time?
That'd be
Perfect,
great.
thank you.
Okay. Any other business? Okay, adjourned.
Thank you.